Thank you, everyone. Look, I'm here today to talk about something that I'm very passionate about. This is very fun. I was saying to Andrew, even as we were standing up the back, a lot of the time you have to go out and you have to do these product pitches or client pitches or whatever you're doing, and you're always talking about a product, and at the end of it you go, and how many of them would you like to buy? Getting to talk about something that I'm passionate about and is part of my job, but not necessarily the thing that we sell, is very exciting, and it's really the customer at the core. And I think whether you're a new product marketer, an experienced product marketer, if you work in B2B, B2C, whatever you're going to define that as this day, SaaS, products, hardware, software, I really believe that the product marketing, it should serve the customer first. And I'll get to why, and that's not necessarily doing exactly what the customer wants, but that's serving the customer. As we said, I'm from News Corp. I promise we're not just newspapers. We do lots more than that. But I've had a pretty varied experience base. I started off in big Japanese tech and really that push from hardware to software. I moved into the 5G and network infrastructure space, and then now I've landed at News Corp. And look, the first thing I want to say here is that product marketers are more valuable when they understand the client. I'm not saying that we have no value if we don't understand the client, but I'm saying we're a lot more valuable to the business and eventually the customer. We often spend far too much time stressing about the business case. You know, you're working with product and product's going, we're ideating on this thing. And we go, okay, cool, that's the thing, I'm going to focus on that. And we focus on the product development and the product delivery. The actual aim is to understand the customer at every step of the way, and that's where product marketing sits. Again, I'll get to that, but if we don't understand the customer, I challenge you to go, really, who does? Often the product team is working back of house. Yes, they're still engaging with customers. Depending on where they are, they're often involved in pitching, but it's very much a technical pitch. Sales are focused on sales. And the customer is sitting there going that I kind of know what I want. And often if you just listen to them, they'll tell you that. Look, we can really take control and increase the value by understanding that client throughout the process. And I mean that not just as an initial, hey, we're thinking about doing this new thing, or hey, we've had this thing in market for a long time, but really throughout, working with them to receive feedback. And we have to do that comprehensively and constantly. Now, I alluded to this, I'm like, is customer-centric a tagline in your brand presentation? You're probably all going, look at this idiot, he put a stock photo up. That's my point. That is a stock statement. How many of you here would have something around customer centricity in brand collateral, product collateral, something like that? I'm assuming most people. How many of you are actually customer centric? That's my challenge. I'll leave that one with you. I'm happy to have a chat about it later. That's really my challenge. How many people are actually customer centric? It really is something that we have to be the ones driving that. Again, sales isn't going to be customer centric because sales just wants to make money. And I'm generalizing, but sales just wants to make money. Product isn't going to be customer centric because product has a very heavy slant to producing a product that they want to produce. Oftentimes because it's fun, right? It's often product, and I'm getting a few laughs, so I'm hitting there. But often product wants to produce something that isn't necessarily in the best interests of the business, but it's kind of the coolest thing to work on. Where I see product marketing sitting is this. Oh, I've gone backwards. Cool. We're the fulcrum. So we sit in the middle. We don't necessarily own the entire process, but we help to strategize and finalize. And really, again, this is I want you to take hopefully some confidence out of this to go like, we're the mouthpiece. And we're not necessarily the mouthpiece of the holistic strategy, but we're the mouthpiece of the day-to-day stuff that actually works. And it's working with, and again, I'm generalizing here saying client, product, and sales, but it's working within different teams of the business, with finance, with HR in some cases, lots of different aspects of the business to go, we have to sit in the middle. And we have to be the one that is the pivot point, because really no one else is going to do it, because everyone else has a really vested interest in the thing that they're focused on. Often the finance part of the business has the really big focus on keeping costs low. The sales part of the business has really, really big interest in making the most commissions. And I know I'm harping on about that at the start, but I just want to set the scene. to really go, we have to sit in that center. So look, product outcomes. And I think a lot of this has been, and I'm sure it's a theme we're going to see over today and tomorrow, but a lot of this has kind of been covered in different aspects. This is my take on it, is as we're looking at a product, and we have to be involved early in the ideation piece. It can't be something that product comes to you and goes, hey, we've got a product. We just put the bow on it, and what we need you to do is just take it to market, figure out how we can make the most money with it. We have to be involved throughout. We have to define, so we have to work with them to go, there's actually a problem that we need to solve here. And that problem may be greenfield. That problem may be something that doesn't actually exist in the market, but it has to be solved. We then have to work to validate, not influence. And this is probably where I'm getting to the customer side of things, but throughout the business. When you're doing any sort of research, internal or external, you have to look to validate it, not to influence it. You can't ask leading questions. You can't ask very closed questions that end with a yes, no. I know it's painful and it takes longer, but it has to be done in a very open way that encourages the subject matter expert on the other side of the table to actually tell you what they think. Not just, hey, tick, 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 they completed my survey, we're good, I've done my validation. And then you have to communicate that. The amount of times that I've worked with different parts of a business and come in and gone, we have this incredible, fantastic feedback that doesn't actually move from the team that's collated it. And product marketing is just as guilty of that as anybody else. We take all this information in, and then often it only gets delivered to a few stakeholders in a very formalized process, and especially in a bigger business, there's a lot of layers and a lot of different teams. The biggest thing to me, and I want to harp on this, is communication isn't just internal but external. So say you've had some client interviews and the customer's given you some really, really, really good feedback. And they throw that feedback at you and you go, awesome, that's really valuable. I can use that. Not only to help you, but to help other clients that we're also trying to talk to. And often what you do is you take that and you walk back to your business and they really never hear from you again. Maybe they hear like 12 months later going, hey, we want to do some follow-up research. They need to be communicated with. It's the worst thing. How many times do you fill out like a help me form on a website or a I'm interested in learning more? And if the business is good, great, but half the time it's like you don't actually ever hear back from them. And you go, I asked a pretty specific question that could probably be of some help to them. And it just disappears. Not knowing what's happened to it really discourages you from giving more feedback. And so that's my challenge, is you have to communicate it. Now, the flip side of communicating it back is change is actually an outcome. It may be something that you've looked to validate and you've got some answers to go, actually, I completely disagree with that. And I think what the direction that you're going, the product that you've got, the strategy that you're trying to implement, it's just not going to hit, and here's the reasons why. That's valuable, right? That's the whole point of doing the feedback. And this is what I mean by we have to be throughout the productization process all the way to launch and beyond, is because if we're not asking those questions, in particular of the market, but also of the different stakeholders within the business, who is? Again, product wants to work on the cool stuff. They want to make the bright things with the bells and whistles. It has to be something that there has to be almost this sanity check sitting in the middle that really is where I see product marketing sitting as the fulcrum. Segment. Look, I'm challenging you here again, driving adoption by engagement, not by force. How many sales calls do you go out on, especially when you've launched a new product? It's brand new, it's just hit the market, that you kind of come out of that sales call and the salesperson, the wider pitch team that you're part of, goes, yeah, that just wasn't the right, that just didn't work. They weren't interested, they didn't like it. Let's try again tomorrow. If you've done the work beforehand, and by doing that research of both internal and external stakeholders, if you've done that research and you've created a segment that you're going to go after, you're driving adoption by engagement, not trying to ram it down people's throats. Often that's a sales team will get armed with something. Everyone's got targets across everything. Everyone's got different KPIs, and so we just go sell. Particularly in the SaaS world, and I speak from experience here, that often comes undone in that somebody goes and sells something. We have to kind of bootleg it to get it in because it wasn't really perfect, but like, hey, it's money, so we're going to take the money. And then 6 months in, you've spent more internal costs trying to keep that customer happy than if you'd actually just gone like, not right, let's move on. Hey, we've got this other thing that might work, or we're product developing that. Would you like to have a chat and learn more about that? Boom, there's your validation again. It's if you've got the segment right, and that's where I see product marketing's role. In this process, I see product marketing as we need to be the power of segmenting the audience and really understanding who the target market is. Then we're driving by engagement. We're not having to force it. It's something that's nice and simple. It's a conversation again. Everything that we talk about in market is a solution. And I bristle at that word, in part because I originally started as a solutions product manager that was just software, and they didn't want to say it was software because that would split the software and the hardware. But it should organically be a solution. You shouldn't have to be going out there pitching it as a solution. The product on its own, if you're targeting the right segment, they should recognize that it's a solution without you having to be like, look at this solution, it's amazing. And then talking about launch. So the product's been completed. We've done all our pre-work. We're creating a go-to-market. Then we conduct training. Then we launch the product. Often it's quite a linear process, right? It's not something that's incredibly collaborative. It's something that we're all time poor. We're only getting more time poor, that we kind of just have to do stuff quickly. And my point here is it can actually be a lot quicker if you flip it on its head and waterfall it. So we've completed the product. But before we've completed the product, we're working with the product team. We've already been validating at the start of this process. So we've got a pretty good in-depth knowledge of the product. So we're already creating the go-to-market because we've done our segmentation and we understand where that's going. Notice that I've got a clear bar here as that go-to-market doesn't stop because you need to be getting that feedback, and we'll touch on that. We're doing the training. Now, the training should start at the point that the go-to-market finishes because otherwise you have incomplete collateral and you'll lose all credibility. But it doesn't stop. And my point is it doesn't stop is as you're launching it, yes, whichever team's involved in the business, whether that's operations, whether that's a call center, whether that's the sales team, whoever, they all need to be trained before it goes to market. But that's not when training stops. And this is really something that I've seen a lot of success in. You do an initial round of training because somebody needs to be informed, but then you're out there with the teams that are out there trying to sell the product, and you're collating feedback that maybe you go, oh, that's interesting. I don't think they really understand about this, or they're pitching this bit wrong, or this just isn't resonating. Again, I want to challenge you and go, like, training shouldn't stop. Training should stop at the point where we go, okay, we're now end-of-lifing a product. Like this is the point that it's dead. Because you're getting new people coming into the business. People are coming, people are going. You know, News Corp has 4,500 people nationally, and we have, depending on which way the bonuses flow, 400 to 600 salespeople. I can't engage with all of them at an individual level to train them. The onus on them is to also want to be trained. And I'm sure you hear that all the time. But it needs to be thought-provoking and innovative enough in a business that has an incredible amount of products across connected TV, across print, across digital, all sorts of different things to go, I need to make sure that my product sitting in that product portfolio gets enough attention that they want to ask me questions and that we're iterating on it. So look, identifying early and really identifying with flexibility. We're attempting to identify all of the stages early to streamline this process. And I can really start anywhere here because I'm talking about the go-to-market. The go-to-market informs the sales strategy. But the customer research has informed the target segment. And the target segments inform the go-to-market. So it's this loop that the go-to-market informs the sales strategy. But if you're then doing your work in market, trying to validate that go-to-market, it's more customer research that may change the initial target segment that you're talking about, that ultimately may inform that go-to-market. Don't limit yourself to a single strategy. You know, it really has to be adapted as that go-to-market process unfolds. And again, I think a lot of the time, and I'm sure there's a few people in here that work on a single product, and I'm sure there's a few people here that work on a really big range of products. On that really big range of products, often the challenge is to make sure that none of them are really kind of like the forgotten child, and that there's something sitting there that like it's just moving away. It's sold a little bit. We're fine. It's not the focus because we're working on the big flashy stuff now. It's making sure that you're always thinking about that. And again, this is what I mean about product marketing being the fulcrum. If you're not thinking about that, it's going to reach a point where someone in the executive or upper management goes, hey, that's not making any money. Why isn't that making the money? if you're already on that and you're trying to continuously iterate and identify, you're on top of that and we're never having that conversation. MVPs. We've already touched on that this morning, but MVPs are incredibly valuable. Incredibly valuable. Speed is great, and an MVP is speed. But over-commercialization isn't. What I mean by that is getting an MVP to market and testing that with a customer is fantastic. Charging them full whack and trying to pretend that it isn't an MVP is only going to get you in trouble. And I come back to the same thing about a SaaS product where often you've gone and you've pitched something that hasn't worked, you've shoehorned it in. Same thing with an MVP. I didn't want this to be a big product pitch. You know, we just launched some shoppable video products. I don't know if any of you have seen them. They're really cool. But the point that I want to make is we paired with Moet and Chandon to produce this shoppable product that ultimately you can go in and buy a customized bottle of champagne. Great to pitch because you're just giving people bottles of champagne left, right, and center. The point being, throughout the entire process, they were aware it was an MVP. They were aware that they were the first people to take this to market. Look, that was part of the pitch. It's probably not 100% ready yet, but we can get you guys going with it and you can have all of the advantages that this brings. So whenever something went a little bit wrong, the customer expectation was already set that this wasn't going to be perfect. It wasn't going to be fluid. There were going to be a few little bumps across the way. But in the end, we're going to produce this fantastic thing that is now resonating in market. Benefit for them, they were first to market and they've had some fantastic results. Benefit to us, we have a case study that we're going to be able to talk about at the point where we really go hammer and tongs live with that product. You know, people sell to people. It doesn't matter where you are in the process, people sell to people, and people value honesty, right? They don't want to feel like they're being sold to. If you walk in and go, I've got this fantastic MVP, but that's what it is, it's an MVP, immediately you've disarmed the conversation. And I do often think that product marketing needs to be the one driving that at the fulcrum because sales wants to make commission. And so if they're going out there and they can come back to their bosses and say, hey, we sold that MVP at full whack, it may be lost in that because everyone's going, oh, awesome, so it does work. Like we got full price for the thing we wanted, but it's probably been lost in that maybe it wasn't sold as an MVP and maybe implementing it might have some bumps that now we're going to have to go back and try and work on it. Look, customer experience changes everything. And customer experience isn't just the in-product experience, whether that's hardware, software, whatever it is. Customer experience is from the moment that you engage with the customer all the way through to the moment that the customer tears up the contract and goes, stuff you, I'm out. It exists from the moment you start validating. If you're talking to someone about an idea that your business has, you're already working on that. You're already providing customer experience. It's the only part of the product that never ends. And a poor client experience at any point impacts you converting them into a long-term partner. If they had a really bad onboarding, the point that it comes up for a renewal or a repurchase, they're probably going to be like, nah, remember what happened last time we rolled that out? It sucked. If during their purchase period they're not enjoying it, they're probably going to go to market and buy another one. If at the point where they're offboarding it, you give them a really bad experience and there's no customer service as somebody's offboarding something, again, whether that's hardware, software, consumer business, it leaves a really bad taste in someone's mouth. And often when they go to market again, that stakeholder, whether that's in that business or another business, starts going like, no, I don't want to talk about News Corp because like they burned me. And it was terrible and I hated it. And I don't ever want to work with them again. Look, and I'm kind of covering it here. You know, and I really want to focus on the offboarding here. Because to me, the offboarding is a bit that nobody thinks about. And if you're thinking about it, awesome. But often it's the bit that it's just kind of like, okay, if we're end-of-lifing a product or if we're trying to upgrade someone to a product, we never think about how we're going to, you know, it's a very formal process. It's often like, hey, we have to send a notification out. Okay, our process is it has to be a letter. So do we still have their postal address? We'll do that. We'll flick them a quick email. We'll give them a quick call. You know, they've already told us they don't want to proceed. So why would we spend any more money trying to woo that customer? The point that I want to make is that it all makes you memorable. And the marketplace is only getting more ever crowded. It doesn't stop. It's really easy to set up a business. It's really easy to set up a website and start selling things. You can drop ship. You can code your own web. You know, it's ever competitive, it's not going away. So every single step of this process, I see product marketing doesn't necessarily have to own all of it, but we have to be involved in it because we're the ones communicating. We're communicating with everybody. And if we're not communicating and bits of this get missed, it's working with sales to go, okay, sales, this customer's touchy. Why is it touchy? Oh, we went out to lunch and they told us they hated us and they never want to do business with us again. Okay, how can I work with a trade marketing team or a comms marketing team to make sure that we're producing something that maybe we can send to them and go, hey, we understand you weren't super impressed with us. Like, look, we don't want to keep you, but it's something that we're quite upset that that's something that's your opinion of us. How can we help? The other thing that I want to say here about customer experience, and it kind of ties into that MVP piece, is people love an inside look and they love getting an advanced look at something. So always keep that in mind with MVP. You're giving someone an advanced look. Product marketing can be a significant non-sales lead in the process. I say can because we have to earn it. It's something that you have to make sure that you're out there engaging with people. You have to get in front of clients. You're enhancing the relationship. Often sales goes, and how many times have you heard this? Oh no, I can't talk to them. They're a touchy customer. It's sensitive. You know, we have to be careful. That's the point that product marketing should be involved. You know why? Because you have product marketing in your job title. You don't have account manager. You don't have business specialist. You don't have something that is a pure sales-facing role that means that you can come in and go, hey, I understand, but I'm actually here to help, and I'm the one that can take this back to the business and really get stuff done. Again, remember I mentioned day-to-day we get stuff done. We can get stuff done with the customer because we don't have that sales-facing title. That feedback loop, and I know I've mentioned it, it's bled through, you know, it's feedback at every step of the process. You've released a product. Then you've come out with a dot release. It's a maintenance or an improvement. For that, maybe it's an updated model. You know, a car. We put a new set of features on this year's model, but it's not a whole new model. Then we're updating it. It's a full numbered release. It's a brand new product. There has to be feedback at every step of the process, and product marketing should be working. If we're not the ones getting it, we should be the ones helping to get it, because really that's helping inform that process and it's closing that feedback loop. What is the most important task in product marketing? Again, I don't know if you can tell I'm passionate about this. This is something to me that I don't think businesses do very well across the board. Andrew, was that a hand up? No. What's the most important thing? To me, it's building and maintaining relationships. Because if you've got all of these different internal and external relationships, internal, you can go to product and you can actually have a conversation that doesn't have to be a minuted meeting with 25 different stakeholders involved. You can go to sales, and sales is confident enough in you that they're going to take you out and talk to the customer. When you go and talk to the customer, you've got these relationships that you can go through and be like, okay, great. We touch so many different parts of the business, and we have to make sure that we're the power in that. And then communicating. So I mentioned, I think it has to be constant, creative, beneficial, and diverse. And it has to be beneficial to everyone. It isn't just to one stakeholder. It has to be to all the different parties involved in this. So it really, and the reason why I wanted to get that is because you're receiving powerful insight from all the different parts of that process. It's really making sure that when you're receiving all of that you're doing something with it. You don't have this great Google sheet somewhere in the background that has all of these different notes that you've got on all different aspects of things that, like, you just look at before you go to bed and it makes you feel really happy knowing that you know that. It's being disseminated to the right people and that they're actually understanding it. So look, I just want to end on a couple of things. And again, I really want to come back to that fulcrum. It's delivering that feedback back to all of those stakeholders really enhances that fulcrum. What it does, it empowers you and it enhances your product marketing's function, whether that's an individual contributor or a team. It really enhances that throughout the business. True customer centricity is really, really hard because there has to be a depth of knowledge and I guess a speed to market that is difficult to obtain. But product marketing needs to be that voice to be customer-centric. You know, people engage with clients all the time, but it doesn't just mean engaging with clients. It means understanding all the different aspects of the business and making sure that you're that voice positioning everyone through. Thank you.
Interesting question, and I'm quoting, all right? This is not my words. We have a silly sales team that, I think we've all got silly sales teams, that don't practice qualification or abide by our segmentation. What advice do you have to convince them?
Earn it. I have a really silly sales team. They love taking people to lunch. I work with an ad sales team. I'm going to generalize. The management isn't, but a lot of the account managers are quite young. They have a lot to learn, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but I mean that's where I see me as I have to empower them. It's relationship based. It's not something that starts particularly quickly. You have to ramp it up, right? You have to earn a couple of stakeholders' trust, so that throughout the process, you're going to sales meetings, you're engaging in whips, you're actually getting out there in client calls. The first few times that, and I'll use News Corp as the example, the first few times that I had to go out, there was very little faith throughout the business because it wasn't something that a product marketing function had done for a while. I'm asking to go out to customer calls and really participate in that. And the first couple of times it was like, hang on, I need to turn my sales pitch over to this guy. I've never met him before. I don't know if he's going to be any good. The point that you can get out there and confidently articulate what you need to get across, and I want to say this specifically, it's not that it works, it's that the salesperson sees that it works. Because you're not, unless you're in a business that has 10 different customers and all of those customers are huge and that's what's keeping you guys afloat, an individual customer engagement isn't going to change your life as a product marketer. But that salesperson is going to go back to the team and go, wow, that Josh guy, he really came out there and he nailed it. We need to get him in more stuff. That's how it's initially a slow process, but eventually, as with anything, right? It's like with product adoption, it's really hard to get it out there, but then eventually you hope that you've done your job right and that customers are coming to you asking about things as opposed to you having to go to the customer.
Yep. Get them to borrow belief and then have belief. I like it. So I've certainly seen this next situation. So how do you manage concerns around discounting pricing or different styles of pricing for MVPs and the sales team's concern or even the client having this expectation of that's the benchmark going forward? How do you set up that conversation at the beginning?
Look, it's all different and again, it's in different verticals. I'll call back to the 5G experience that I have in that we were pitching a product that disproved a distance theory, and I won't go too far into it because unless there's a whole lot of 5G people in the room, that's probably you're already bored. But the pitch was, this is an MVP because we're going to do something that you've never seen before. So we want you to pay for it. But if we're right, you're the first mover to market. And I think that kind of power, and that's what I was getting at with the inside look, I think often you're setting the expectation up front that it's not necessarily going to be a smooth ride. If it is a smooth ride, awesome, everyone's happy. But if something goes wrong, you can always call back to the fact with but that's why you didn't pay, you paid an MVP price. And I think that's where I'm very passionate and firm about the fact that whenever you're out there pitching an MVP, product marketing needs to be in that room. Ideally, product's also in that room, but product marketing has to be in that room because if the salesperson gets a bit excited, you just need to rein them back in.
I've never seen salespeople excited. Awesome. No, I love that, and I really like your CX love. It's a bit like Michael Ball, that love changes everything, but customer love really drives the world. So thank you. Appreciate that.
Awesome.